I'm gonna remember this next time.
And I would have my real Jason next time you try to
Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. The demonstration today is for 3 types of clay. You're going to see a pinch method, which is an example here, a coil method, which is an example here, and then also a slab method, which is the more geometric example here. All right, so let me start off by explaining to you what some of these tools are. First thing you're going to get is a bag. This is for you to store your clay piece in. So whatever you make needs to fit inside this bag. It's a gallon size. You see this piece right here would fit in there, and then I can just twist it up and I would place this in my bin. You want to leave it in the bag so that the bag is airtight whenever you are still working on it. So this goes in your bin with the bag so that it stays moist. If it dries out, you won't be able to work with it, and it will dry out overnight if you leave the bag open or if you leave it out of the bag completely. Okay, so you want to be aware of that. You will get a twist tie also if you want to twist it up, but I think just twisting the bag and placing under it will work for you just fine. So you'll get one of those. On your table you will have some sponges. Okay, a large sponge is for cleaning the table up, and then the smaller sponge is for working in smaller areas, obviously. So there'll be one small sponge for everyone, and a big sponge will be on your table to clean up. This water also, you can probably use this for the score and slip method as well. So it doesn't have to stay clean. This water can get a little cloudy. It's not a big deal. Okay, another tool you're going to have at your disposal is called a decorating wheel. This is not for throwing, which we learned about last week. This is for decorating. So you put your piece on the wheel and you can turn it back and forth a lot more easily whenever you use the decorating wheel. It's not supposed to be spun really fast and then you shape it. That's not what this is for. So please don't use it for that purpose. This is just for carving and doing detailed work after you get the basic shape of your piece there. Very useful tool there. Another thing you'll have at your table are some pieces of credit cards. These are good for scraping and shaping tops and sides, making them nice and smooth. You can use the edges to carve things in here. Really, any way that you can use a tool is okay. There's no wrong way to use any of these tools. Whatever you can think of will work. There will also be some plastic forks, good for scoring and slipping. I'll show you that in a little bit here. We have some wooden tools here. You may have a few different metal tools as well. So they're all good for shaping and molding the clay in a more detailed fashion if your fingers are too big and you can't use them for that. Okay, so there's a few tools for you. Let me go ahead and start the demonstration of the actual processes so you can see what it is we are doing. We have 3 processes that I'm going to be teaching you. Okay, the first and most simple of these processes is pinching. Okay. Now, this clay, if you notice whenever I cut it, that there are no holes in the clay, that it is very smooth on the surface. That's what you want. If your clay, when you tear it in half or cut it in half, has holes, you need to do what's called wedging the clay. That means that it needs to be kneaded like dough so that you get all those little air pockets out. Because if you get air pockets in your clay, whenever you are working with it, and I go to fire it in the kiln, those air pockets will expand inside your piece and the piece will break off in little parts here, and it can come back to you in pieces. That happens more often than I'd like, so let's make sure that if we make a mistake, that you see how I've kind of smushed it in. I haven't torn it apart and folded it like this, because we don't want to get air pockets in our clay. Okay, so to start a pinch pot, You just need a ball of clay. This is a little bigger just so I can show you what I'm doing. You may want to start with a smaller piece. Here, let me go ahead and make this a little smaller actually. Let's cut it in half. Check for no air pockets there, so that's what I want. Okay, so I can just make this one into a smaller ball. Okay, and it's important to keep your clay moist when you're working with it. So every once in a while, it starts to feel like it dries out, or even if you just want to, it's a good idea to take a little water on your fingers and spread it over the surface of the clay. Okay, this is a better baseball size piece, much better for a smaller cup. The piece I had just a minute ago would be good for a larger bowl, but you got to remember, whatever you're making needs to fit in your bag. So if it won't fit in this bag, whenever it's folded, you're going to have some problems with it. Okay. So to start a pinch pot, you start with the ball, and you hold it in one hand, and then you take your thumb, push it right into the middle. It's like that. Okay, and I'll take that out so you can see there is just a hole where my thumb goes in there. And then you hold it in your hands, and you start to use your fingers just like this on the side, and you're going to start to thin the wall and pinch it, and you can feel with your fingers about how thick it is in different spots. So you're just kind of turning it and pinching it, thus the name pinch pot. This is the simplest, easiest way to make clay, to do ceramics into something useful. This is really good for, like I said, bowls. You see my bowl here. This was a pinch method. So you see as I'm pinching, it's getting deeper, and I'm working to make it turning it as I go so it's nice and even on all sides. Okay, see it's getting a little bit bigger there. Okay, once it gets big enough, I can start using both of my hands if I want to. Make sure that I am keeping it moist. If it dries out too much, that can be a problem. So you want to make sure you keep that moist. If you start to see lots of cracks, and then maybe even it starts splitting, then you know you really need to moisten your clay because you want to avoid any cracks. Okay, so this is a good size. It's pretty thick. It's about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick on the wall. That's a little thicker than I'd like. This is a little thinner, maybe 1/8 of an inch there, but you kind of get the idea here. So once you get your cup, whatever shape you're working it may take you longer. I've done pinch pots where I've taken 30 minutes to shape the clay to get it just the right size, just the right shape. Okay, so once you get it to whatever shape you want, then you can use your decorating wheel. That's where the wheel comes in, and you kind of set it on there, and then you take your tool, whatever it may be, and you can start shaping the clay and carving it, so to speak. Just carve the lip off there so you can kind of see what's happening when I do this. Okay, I can carve something into the side. Let's say I want to do my name. B-E-N. All right, so that's my first name. And this is really simple. Oversimplified. I expect yours to be a little bit more complex, a little bit more thought out. But this is just a simple pinch method here. Okay, the next method that I want to show you is called the coil method. So the coil method is kind of similar to the pinch method in that you are making kind of a wall, but instead of pinching out, you're going to coil it around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this ball of clay, I'm going to take some chunks off of it here. Okay, one of the chunks is going to be my base. Okay, usually always start coil piece with a base. And you want the base to be whatever shape. So if you're doing an oval, like a platter or a serving bowl, you want to start with your oval. I'm going to do just a simple circle because that's a lot easier. You want it to be fairly thick. 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch is good. Anything thinner than that, too thin, and it's probably not going to work. So that's probably a good thickness right there. Even thicker would be okay too, but not much thinner than this. Okay, and you can use the decorating wheel almost exclusively for the building portion of that. So I'm going to set that in the middle there, and then these I'm going to roll out into snakes. You guys remember this from when you were littler? Hopefully when you were littler you had a chance to do some kind of Play-Doh or clay or something like that. Maybe even those of you that help cook in the kitchen, you did this with some dough. I'm just going to roll out some snakes here. Okay, so I've got 3 snakes here. And what I'm going to do with my coil pot is I'm going to start to place them on the base and kind of wrap them around the edge. And when I get to this one's going to go right over top. And depending on where I place it, I can go straight up, I can kind of come out like this, I can come out and then go in. So the coil method really has, you have more control over the shape. It's not like pinch pot. When you do pinch pot, you just go out and out and out and out and out and out and out. Coil method, you can go up, in, out, in, however you want. So it really is a little more versatile with that. So I'm just going to go straight up with this. Just stacking the coils on top of each other. Okay, now I did tell you that slip and score is the right way to join clay, right? Score and slip. You can score and slip the top of every coil if you want to, but I find that gets very time consuming. Okay, because you're constantly scoring and slipping and it's taking a long time. So I've devised a better method for joining the clay together. So after you get all your coils, see I have my coils here. So after you get all your coils together, take your fingers, obviously wet your clay so that it is nice and moist. Okay, and the next step you do, you can take this, you can do a wooden piece, you can use your finger, you can use the back of a fork, anything that is flat. Okay, and then you want to kind of rub those coils together so that they kind of join up together. You're kind of smoothing the rough, bumpy edge of the coils together. And what that's going to do for you is join those coils together so you don't have, you can kind of avoid that score and slip thing and use that more for putting a handle on there, or if you want to add feet or some kind of a base, or if you want to have some other parts that you add on there, you kind of save that method for later. So this really helps join them together, keeps it nice. Okay, and you can do the inside too. If I wanted to do the inside, I could. Let's see here. This one's good. So I could take the piece here, do the inside as well. And you really can't see what's going on the inside, but I'm just smoothing those bumps together. I'm not pressing so hard that I'm going all the way through, but I am, and you can use your finger for this also. I just find the card works a little better. So you see what I've done there, bumps here, just go up the side and smooth that together. Okay, so that is another method of working with the clay, is this coil method. Okay, the last method that I want to show you, it is the most involved, but it can be the most satisfying, is the slab method. So the slab method is very simply taking your piece of clay and rolling it out and then cutting pieces out and then score and slip on the edges to create a box, or you can curve a slab to create a cylinder a little easier. All right, so let me see here. Take about half of this. Good. So this involves a rolling pin. This is a canvas board. Helps keep the clay from sticking. You notice how I'm not using the handles necessarily on the rolling pin. You don't always have to use the handles. Be careful when you're doing the slab technique. You don't want to make them the walls of your slab too thin. If you go too thin, it's going to be too difficult to work with, and you're not going to like the results on your final piece. Okay, so I would say again, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch is good. Any thinner than that, and you're really going to be running into some problems. Okay, so I've got a sharp object here. I can use the card whenever I want to work this piece. So let me start with my base.
No trouble.
Okay, so there's my base right there. And I'll make the walls kind of irregular. Let's see if that one will work. Yep, that'll work on that side there. That'll work on this side here. Maybe I'll do this way. Okay, so you can see how when I'm putting it together here, I'm kind of planning out, okay, how do I want this piece to be? How do I want it to look? So those of you that are into building things, this is kind of an engineering thing at the same time that it is a okay, so I got my pieces set out. That might work for my slab construction. And if you want to do something even like this, that's fine. So again, when you're scoring and slipping, I'll use my fork here to score these edges all along my base. Kind of mark those up. And then I need to score the edges I'm going to put down. Use my finger to wet that, and then just stick that down. Okay, and that will put a little bit of pressure there to help it stick a little better. It helps if you kind of run your finger along the inside and the outside. Okay, and that would be and I would do all sides like that for the slab construction. Okay, so you can see how I'm starting to join those pieces together. They are still kind of, you need to be careful with them so you don't knock them off when they're still wet. If you want to do like you did with the coil piece and kind of just lightly join the edges, that helps it stay a little more sturdy. You kind of try the inside a little bit, but be careful whenever you're doing it so that you don't dig too deep into your piece. But you can kind of see how that method works there. Okay, so like I said, you probably won't get around to clay today. We're running close to the bell, and I just want to kind of give you the general rundown of how to do the 3 methods of clay. So you have pitch pot here, you have coil pot, then you have your slab construction. Okay, so you choose whichever of the 3 methods you want to use. Another thing you can do is a slab sculpture, where you take your piece here and you can actually add parts onto it. If you want to make a face, you just add the parts onto it, and then you can use that as the kind of sculpture in and of itself. So this is good if you want to do like a nameplate, or if you want to do some kind of a sculpture that you hang on the wall. This is good for that, because then you can add like a hole for a nail before you fire it, so that the nail can go through there. And then you could hang something like that on the wall. It will glaze it later, but right now we're just thinking about the form of the thing. What do we want to do as far as like cup, bowl, plates, that sort of thing. So hopefully you got some ideas and you're ready to go. Cleaning up, fairly simple. You see I've got some clay on my hands. You take the smaller of the two sponges, just kind of sponge your hand off into the water over top like this. And these sponges shed the clay pretty easily, so you take it and then you just go over the table. It'll pick up any of that silt, throw that in there, and you take the big sponge and go over it one last time. A little water is not a big deal. It'll air dry and it should be fine. Okay, so that's how you clean up there. Don't dump any water in the sink. That is super, super important. If you pour the water in the sink, they will clog. I have a slow drain here and here. The sink in the back where the paintbrushes are is not a slow drain, so I will be taking care of the water. There will be a bucket for wastewater. I'll take care of it if it needs to be changed out. Okay, I don't need you guys changing out the water, because I'm afraid you're going to pour the clay down the sink and that clogs the sink and makes it really nasty. Okay, so any questions?